Welcome to Beyond the Chamber podcast. I'm Kelly Richman, and I'm the host today along with Matthew.
I'm Matthew Ferraro, the president and CEO of the Katy Area Chamber of Commerce.
And welcome, Jay. We're
Thank
so
you.
glad to have you here.
This is great.
We're glad you could come join us this morning.
You are our first official guest on this podcast, so
No pressure.
no pressure. Our goal.
It's pressure on both of us.
Our goal with this whole podcast is to kind of go beyond what you do as a profession and let people know who J. Neal really is, right? What makes J. Neal tick? What are some of those successes that you've had in life? What are some of the failures that have gotten you to where you are today? So I think we'll start off a little bit about...
Yeah. Well, I was going to say I met you through my first leadership class. So you were a backup, or is that what you call it? Backup
we were
facilitator.
during the pandemic, and I was the safety net in case one of the facilitators.
There you go.
Somebody
sick.
had to back out or whatever. So I met you at Stony Creek, I think was the first time. So you've enjoyed getting to be a part of leadership, and I hear that maybe you're doing a little more with leadership now.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place. So, yeah.
Between Katy and Sugarland.
Yeah, and a little bit of central Fort Bend sprinkled in there as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
Good.
there's a lot going on in our communities, and the university needs to have a presence in there. Just in terms of a pipeline for students, but also, hopefully our chamber members are hiring our students when they graduate.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to create a professional workforce pipeline in the community. So that's the goal.
That's the objective. So how long have you been with the university?
In August, it will be 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So started out as a lecturer and then finished my PhD and went through the tenure process and became tenure. I'm trying to remember, in 2015, actually the Hilton College where I taught at had a campus in San Antonio. And I had an opportunity to take on an interim position as an administrator in San Antonio for a year. In the meantime, the position in Sugarland was opening. And having commuted from Sugarland to San Antonio for a year, the opportunity to be commuting like 2.3 miles from my house was this big carrot. But not just that, it is,
You're like, okay, twist my arm.
Yeah, exactly. Twist my arm on that one. But also, I know the students in the community, those are my children's friends. And I know their families. And to be able to provide this to our community is amazing. The other thing that this is really funny, and I mean this wholeheartedly, is I really think I got the job because I fill the role as translator. I speak fluent Fort Bend County, and I also speak fluent U of H. And when the two parties get together...
How many of those are there?
Yeah, not a whole lot of us. But, when the parties get together, sometimes there's some things that get lost in translation sometimes. So that's been really helpful.
Awesome.
Even Katy as well, just being active in the community, knowing... 99% of what we do is relationship-based. Yeah. So being able to pick up the phone and get things untangled, there's some big decisions being made, and there's a lot of things in high risk at stake. So how do we keep things from being untangled? And majority of that is just relationship-based leadership, and just knowing who to contact, or having a network where they can get you in contact with the decision makers to kind of. Right. This perpetual march towards yes, trying to get to where everyone's goals are being met. So that's what we do.
So what made J. Neal want to do education or get into education?
That's a long story.
It's
a lot of surprises. So out
of high school, where you're like, I'm going to be an educator.
Oh, no.
Okay.
What were your aspirations in high school?
My aspirations in high school was to...
party a lot.
Yeah, but get paid to do that. So I really thought I would be an owner-operator for a restaurant.
Okay.
So my degree.
So he said food service?
Yeah. So my degree is actually in hotel restaurant management. The first job was dining room manager at Guido's in Galveston.
Okay.
Shay and I, my wife and I, we actually are celebrating our 30th anniversary in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
We met
awesome.
at U of H, and she was working with Hilton Hotels and got transferred to Chicago. Spent 2 years in Chicago, came back to Houston after 2 winters. That was my decision.
Oh.
Yeah, it was rough.
Brutal.
Came back, and some classmates of mine from U of H were actually working for Beck's Prime Restaurants.
Okay.
So I got on with Beck's, and I worked for Beck's for, good almost 10 years. And so as a general manager, I managed a store at Kirby, then Augusta, and then I went to downtown in the Tunnel. And then I also served as their catering director. And then I guess this is ancient history, but in 2002, my neighbors were Arthur Andersen and Enron. And when they collapsed, it was like, wait, what just happened? And that was like a huge economic impact on the restaurant. It was like,
Oh yeah.
I'm not the owner of this, and we're losing. It costs us 200 customers a day. Yeah. So it was this big impact. So
you went from being busy all the time to like
we're having to let people go.
Yeah.
So and our family was growing at the time. We only had 3 children. We had 4. We only had 3 children at the time, and I was like, this.
What were their ages?
Little
babies, toddlers.
Michaela was probably about 6.
Oh.
So Jackson would have been 2, and John Riley would have been 1.
Wow.
So I actually went to a career counselor, and career counselor said, look, here are the options on the table. You'd be really good in education, or you should consider being a priest. I'm like, well, I've got some baggage for being, I got a package deal of,
That's
so,
quite opposite.
Yeah,
I just, food and restaurant.
Yeah, so now you're feeding people one way or the other. It's funny you say that, because I actually have 2 dear friends that actually went through the University of Houston, Hilton College, are now priests. Actually, the gentleman that hired me, it was the kitchen manager at Guido's, his name's Tom Ponzini. He's Father Tom Ponzini.
Oh my.
He's a pastor, and I want to say he's in either Hitchcock or Altaloma, that area in Southern Galveston County. So it's not that uncommon. There's been a few rabbis that have gone through the program as well. So it's not that. It's hospitality. It's taking care of people. So.
Yeah.
So I looked at the higher ed piece, and so I went to a colleague of mine that I had known for years. I said, look, getting some feedback to teach. Only thing I really know is restaurant management. If I'm going to do this in higher ed, I never thought about K through 12. It's just like I don't have the patience for that. That's not one of my gifts, So know your strengths and weaknesses. That's not one of them. So. Well, they said, if you could teach, what would you teach? I said, the class I want to teach, you're never going to let me teach. And I said, what do you want to teach? I said, well, what made the most sense to me was very practical. I mean, it was like you had the lecture that day, and then you could apply it at work that night, was actually food safety. And I said the reason why they weren't going to let me teach this class is the professor I had, again, this was the college that I graduated from. The professor I had was Dr. Clint Rappel. He had taught that class for 35 years. He was one of the first original hires that the college made. And he was like the gatekeeper. That was like a legacy. You had to go through him, to do that. And I said, well, it's interesting you mention him. He just had quadruple bypass surgery. We need somebody to teach his class in like 6 weeks. Can you do it? So I was like, heck yeah. Again, so there's a series of yeses. These opportunities come. And you just say yes. So I was still working at Beck's. I had to go to grad school. So I was taking 9 hours of grad classes, and I was teaching 6 hours. And I really fell in love with teaching then. And after that first semester, the college came back and said, would you consider coming on full time? So I did that and got my master's. And then the dean said, if you really want to do this higher ed thing, you need to get a PhD. And it's recommended that you don't do it here. So I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So started looking around, and basically he said, if you were to go to Texas A&M, we'd allow you to continue to teach. So I was able to go to A&M and get my PhD and teach 2 classes.
Okay.
By that time, though, we had 4 children.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was commuting. I commuted to College Station every day for 4.5 years. So you get up in the morning.
Yeah.
I had 8 o'clock. I had stats at 8 o'clock in the morning, and
so how do you balance?
There was no balance. Everything was out of balance.
What was your takeaway in those 4 years? family side. On the
Oh,
family
so
side.
80% of my diploma belongs to Shay because she really managed the chaos.
Yeah.
My children went to bed to the smell of coffee. I mean, making a pot of coffee so I could, we'd get them fed and bathed and put to bed, and then there was homework, until 1 or 2, and just, it was ugly, but you do what you have to do sometimes. And I think there's probably a lot of chamber members, especially if they're small business owners, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And it's we talked about our family, it's seasonal. It's just a season. That this is the season, and you put in a lot of hard work. And there were a lot of prayers on the way from Sugar Land to College Station, like, please let me get a return on this investment. Let me get what I need to get out of it. Will I be able to be the kind of husband and father I want to be? I mean, it was a lot of time away, but after it was over, I was able to go on big camping trips with scouts with the boys and all kind of soccer tournaments and
you
really
just had
be
to put
present.
in your time.
You had to front load it, but you build this machine basically, and it takes care of it. So I have no regrets. It was hard, but I have no regrets of that at all.
So after that was over, were you like soccer team dad or
Scoutmaster? I did, yeah.
So how many boys? Just one?
2 boys and 2
boys.
girls.
And they both did scouts?
Yeah, they both did scouts. And then, so I've got 2 athletes and 2 everything else.
What kind of athletes?
Soccer players.
Okay.
Yeah. So Michaela and John Riley were soccer players. Jackson actually was band. He was drum major at Fort Bend, Austin. Sailor ran cross country. And she graduates from Austin in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So
crazy.
Yeah. So we did, with the Boy Scouts, we did Philmont, we did Sea Base, we did big trips.
So which did you go to Cimarron ever?
Yeah, because that's right there at Philmont. Yeah, that's in New
Philmont,
Mexico.
right?
Yeah.
So very interesting. I photograph occasionally scout. So I have one of the troops that they come in and we do scout pictures for them.
Oh,
so they
cool.
always have
all the full badges on and everything.
the different badges.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So what do you feel like was one of the biggest challenges of that, like, balance of go ahead.
In that time frame, right?
Yeah.
That challenge of not being present physically. And then what support systems did you lean on?
Oh,
Shay.
But really it was friends and family. I mean, really, because even after I got done with this, with 4 kids, we used to call it divide and conquer parenting.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're trying to be at 2 soccer games at the same time and all of that. So just really having a network of friends and family to carpool, and you're like, hey, I can pick up, you drop off, and getting people where they need to be, and just managing that chaos.
Do your parents live around here?
They do now. They didn't at the time.
Yeah.
They were still in Dickinson then. They recently moved to Richmond in this past year, so they're closer now. So we're taking care of them.
But now you
you
needed them.
They need a little more help than I did then.
Yeah.
So. But I have 2 older sisters that both live in Richmond, and they have kids. So the kids are all about the same age. So it was a lot of that.
So growing up, you had
two
older sisters. Okay,
Yeah.
And how was that?
Nice little tone there.
That was a long time ago. We're very close though. We're really, really close.
You're a close knit family.
Yeah. Again, my I don't know if she'll hear this or not, but my oldest sister
You're gonna be like, don't show that.
Yeah, no, she has a tendency, like in public settings, to tell everybody that I'm the oldest.
Oh.
And I'm putting on record that I am not the oldest. I am the youngest.
Oh.
So,
Why does she do this?
Because I look older.
That's funny.
Yeah.
My older sister is 6 years older than me, and we look so much alike that people are always like, are y'all twins? And I'm like, she's 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. What's funny is our children all look like siblings. Like,
Oh, okay.
they all have a lot of resemblances. So, too funny.
So in the world where you are today, there's a lot of moving parts, especially in higher education and the demands of being on both campuses and all these association organization groups you're a part of. Where do you invest time for Jay? Because you've got both campuses and main campus that you have to deal with. By both campuses, I mean Katy and Sugar Land and main campus downtown. Where does Jay carve out time for Jay?
So I would not describe myself as a control freak. But I control what I can control. Yeah. And there's a lot that I cannot. So what I control is my calendar and my time. So I'll go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. Oh, wow. Try to go in like 6:15 in the morning. And I just kind of ease into my morning. And then if I'm in the office by like 8:30, I'm good. So that's very intentional. I have control over that. Even with the restaurant world, I do try and control my diet because I can control what I eat. These are the very few things I have control over. And then like the Zen spot, believe it or not, is my garden. I have a massive garden in the backyard. Awesome. But that's what I can control. Yeah. I can clean up. I had this little piece, and I can cut the grass, and I can keep this organized. And it has a mind of its own, and it moves and flows and things. And I'm having a fight in my vegetable garden with the mouse right now. But I have dogs, so I can't go in and poison like I would. Like it's just a thing. Yeah. But so there's some challenges and things you have to navigate through. But that's really about as much as I can control,
When did you realize that you needed to make that time for yourself?
Probably during the pandemic, believe it or not, because I found even with our team, and I cannot brag about my management team. Yeah. This is the best leadership group I have ever worked with in my entire career, and it makes all the difference. But in watching them, they were getting up at like 6:30, started answering emails, making phone calls throughout the whole day, because I think everybody was so uncomfortable with the working from home thing and didn't want anybody to think that they were not working. Yeah. So I'm like, guys, if you were to get a phone call when you're in the office, it would go to voicemail, and you called them back when it was time. It's okay. You've got to go take a shower sometime today, and they're working till like 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And so I think a lot of things got out of balance through that. Yeah. And I think it was just trying to really figure out, this is something new, Matt. This is not something that I've always done. This has been in the past couple of years, just to really. And I will say this: it's interesting. It's there's some similarities between working out and this. Like if you're working out really, really hard, you need to take a breath for about a minute or two, and then you can push even harder. If you keep trying to push through, you get hurt or you're exhausted and you're done. And it's kind of the same thing at home or mentally or physically at work. Yeah. If you don't take a break, set things down for a little bit, put some boundaries up, you burn out.
How do you think you came to realize that?
I got burned out.
Okay.
It was very organic how that kind of happened.
You noticed it? Like you self-recognized?
Like
okay. And decided like I need to make a change.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, especially small business owners, I was telling Matthew the other day, like I left the corporate world to do my own business, to start my own business, and I spend way more time there than I ever did in corporate. So how do people, what do you have to say to people that kind of know they're there, but they don't know, what do you do? How do you recognize that you're at that point, and what's your first step to fix it? Or what did you do?
Yeah, on that one, and this is watching friends and family with small businesses also, is the challenge is you left corporate world to do something that you really love. So you're doing something that you really love, and you don't see it as work, but you just worked a 20-hour day. Yeah. And did you eat today? Yeah. No, I did not have lunch. You blew through it. So,
or ate some crackers out of my desk drawer.
Yeah, could you set some structure similar to you had at work? And I've had friends that started their own businesses out of their home, where they literally have to get dressed in the morning, get in their car, drive around the block, and pull right back into their driveway to start the morning off. And just really being mindful that all right, from 8 to 11:30, or 8 to noon, I'm going to hit it hard, but I'm going to take 30 minutes or an hour for lunch. And I may listen to a podcast if this one keeps them awake, or something that kind of reinvest in you, but not check emails then. Put your phone down for a little bit. That one's really hard for me.
I think it's hard for everybody.
Yeah, and then but again with your family, okay, communicate also. All right, so if in the evening, so that's the hard part. is shutting it down in the evening. And so, like, do you have dinner
Are you
with your
talking
kid?
to me?
I'm talking to
Jay.
someone that I love very
Preach,
much,
Jay.
has a very similar career path as you. So I've seen it firsthand. My wife's a photographer also, so I've seen this at home.
There you go.
So it's like, okay, we're gonna have dinner as a family. Do you need to get a few things more done? But 8:30, 9 o'clock,
You gotta shut
let's
it
shut
off.
it down. And can you set as reasonable business hours? I mean, you're gonna have, all of us have deadlines, and sometimes you got to push through. And I still, not real often, but the occasional all-nighter pops up. And that's just life. But are you doing all? If you've got 3 and 4 all-nighters in a week, day in and day out, that's a red flag. If it's like right now, we're getting close to graduation. If you're doing senior photos or that kind of stuff, that's the season.
Right.
So.
It is.
How do you
seasonal.
balance that? But if somebody could sit down and just map their hours for a week, like where are you using your time? Are you being efficient? Are you being effective? The thing is, we do have in our office we have a lot of commitments, and they're important commitments to our chambers, right? But can we kind of like the divide and conquer? Which one do I need to go to? Can Dick Phillips cover some of these? Can Beth Johnson cover some of these? And we can get more done as a team that way. Which again, we're trying to be at everything to everybody. And it's hard.
So what made you figure out what those Zen things are? Have you always been into gardening?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I've always been into food. Always been into food.
So you got into gardening because of the food aspect of it?
Like I wanted to grow my own food. And
So-
being a total nerd of, it started out where I wanted to grow all of my ingredients for my own salsa.
Oh, man,
So that's where it
I
started.
love salsa.
I wanted to grow my own garlic, my own onions, my own peppers, my own tomatoes. So we got into
So did you
cilantro.
do garlic?
I got that. We did that. Oh yeah, I got
So
garlic.
have I.
So I
So
got
you're
garlic
speaking
going.
to a gardener here.
Yeah,
so
so I
I'm
did
like,
that
tell
one.
me.
And then it just kind of got out of control from there. So yesterday I made my own cream of artichoke soup. So I have my own
Nice.
artichokes, garlic, onions, celery, peppers, all the
So
herbs. So the
crazy.
thing is and for those that cook, I came to this conclusion yesterday. Artichokes are the crawfish of the vegetable world.
man.
It is so much work
But
to
they're
get so
so
little
good.
of
But they're
anything
so
out of
good.
it. But yeah, that came out pretty good yesterday. So
Yeah. So I had a 10 by 10 garden in my backyard, and I grew artichokes.
Yeah.
So I love gardening. So to hear
That's
that,
awesome.
did
Yeah.
garlic as well.
Yeah.
Love salsa, all the food things.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you've only been doing that for 2 years?
No,
or?
the gardening thing actually started probably, I don't even remember, but before the pandemic, but that really was when things got out of control. Like that was, let's say, out of control. Like it started out kind of like 10 by 10, and then it went 10 by 20, and then 10 by 30, and then
So is it the whole backyard now?
almost half.
So what does Shay think about the garden? She loves it?
Yeah, she likes it. Just stay
Okay.
out of it.
Oh, so she has no part in it.
Not really. No.
Does she have a green thumb or no?
No. And really, she enjoys it. She enjoys eating things from it, but that's not her. That's not her thing. So
Okay.
sometimes I keep my dogs and the mouse that I'm fighting out of it. So I have like 4 rubber snakes. And I have to continually, because that's that actually works a little bit. I have to continually count them, because if there's a 5th one, that's an issue.
Oh.
Because I didn't put that one there, so that one's real. Yeah.
What are kind of going back to higher ed? What are some of the issues? Is such a strong word. What are some of the challenges that your students are facing, and how do you, as kind of a leader within that, help guide them to a path?
I don't think this is necessarily new. I think we have more awareness of it, though. The mental health piece is just unbelievable right now. We're seeing students acting out. We're seeing things that I've in 20 years in higher ed I've never seen. Where I've seen college kids get in fistfights. That was not a thing. Yeah. We're seeing them having mental crisis, like melting down in the classroom, where we're having to call for an ambulance for them because maybe they're hyperventilating or they can't catch their breath. Yeah. Unfortunately, we've actually had 2 suicides at the main campus this year.
Oh my goodness.
And very violent deaths where students are jumping off of buildings. I mean, it's very, very hard. So really looking at what are all the resources that we have? And I will commend the university's doing a great job of this. We have counseling for students in crisis, but it's really not meant to be therapy for them. It's like, let's get you out of crisis. Let's get you a therapist. Most people's insurance cover that, and thankfully our students are required to have insurance, so we can navigate through that. The challenge is sometimes the students don't want their parents to know that they're having struggles. They're afraid that they're going to let their parents down, that they're struggling with this, so they don't want to talk about it to mom and dad, but they do need help.
Yeah.
So really, providing, so we've got resources, whether, counselors in person or telehealth to really help them, but looking at, what are group therapy we can offer the students? What are opportunities just that students feel seen and heard? Just really looking into that, giving them, finals are coming up, so you can feel the
tension.
It's real.
The stress.
We'll have comfort dogs come in. You don't know the power of a golden retriever. I mean, they're like this army of golden retrievers because they're so cute, and as you can just see it, just like the stress just melting off of them. So we do things like that. But the other piece of that is it's interesting is students learn differently now. Yeah. Where unfortunately people get frustrated, I think, when I say this, but failure is part of learning. I when I was teaching, I managed 3 different labs, and I mean these were benchtop labs. So students running an experiment, you write out an experiment on your lab journal, and it's built-in failure. So what's the experiment? Here are the controls. Here are the variables. What worked and what didn't. And some of the students couldn't even navigate through that because they're afraid to make a mistake. So I think students put so much pressure on themselves, whether through social media or whatever, that if they don't, if they're not an expert the first time they try something, then they're a failure. And that's just not the case. It's like, you've got to experiment, you've got to try this. You may have failed a test. That means maybe you didn't study or you didn't understand the material, but you're not a failure.
Right.
There's a big difference with that.
Do you think it's been that way like always, or that's a new thing?
I think it's more new. I think it's the way we teach, because now, and I'm picking on my K through 12 friends, but
the way we teach, or the way they're raised, or
all the above.
Yeah.
So what the teaching thing is okay. So if you make an F, you can redo it and you can make a C. Right? I'm okay. I'm kind of okay with that. Like, you didn't get it right. Try working harder on it. But I think that creates a stigma on failure. But
failure can be okay.
Failure's okay. That's a piece of it.
or if you fail at first, you can try again.
Try it again. Keep like you reboot. You get back on your horse. You figure it out. That's one piece. And I'm gonna pick on this. Is so bad. I'm gonna pick on our friends, and we all suffer from this a little bit with helicopter parenting. I used to keep a picture of the Hindenburg at my desk, and the students would say, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, your mom and dad are helicopter parents. They're going to come save you. You forget your lunch, they're going to bring you a lunch. I, on the other hand, am a Hindenburg parent." And said, "What's that?" "I'm going to let you crash and burn.
Wow.
But you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You leave your lunch at home. You don't. You may be hungry. You're not going to starve to death. You'll be a little uncomfortable. But
Tomorrow
I bet
you'll
you
remember.
don't. Absolutely. Again, it goes to the little game. You put a penny in a light socket. You don't do that again. That's hard, but you learn quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's some of the challenges we're seeing is that.
When did you decide to become a Hindenburg parent?
I think it was the way I was raised. It was just kind of like
Really?
I think my parents were the same way.
Yeah,
they
there are
like
consequences for your decisions.
Yeah. Being a parent myself, and I'm trying to navigate what is culturally deemed right on how you raise your children versus how I was raised. It's been, I can't do that. I can't say this.
Yeah.
How do I, and just even navigating that myself is as a parent is like, wow, this thing's a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Oh yeah, this is rough.
Yeah.
Parenting is rough.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. 4, 3, 2. But what is you were talking about? I lost it. The challenges of the students and how you are offering. What is one of the challenges Jay has had in your professional career? Say in the last, say your most prominent challenge in the last 3 to 5 years. I guess beyond pandemic.
Other than pandemic. Yeah.
That really pushed you to find a positive.
I will say the pandemic it really
That's
kind of pushed that through that one. Yeah. And quite honestly, I think we are just now getting back to, I don't want to say normal. We're getting back to operations. How we do operations is quite different than what we did.
And everything's changed. Even what you did pre-pandemic is different than what you have to do
even
now.
Looking at, how students are taking classes and how we're using space utilization, some of those challenges. There have been frustrations. I've been frustrated with, let's just say patience is not one of my spiritual gifts. And things tend to not move fast enough for me most days, right? So I think, what challenges or frustrations are really looking at, let's make it at U of H at Katy specific. One of my biggest challenges is identifying and bringing out additional programs to make that campus grow. That has taken much longer than I thought it would. When we originally came out to Katy, we had a study done and said, okay, what do we start with? And again, it's no surprise. It's based to our proximity to the energy corridor. Right. Engineering's perfect match. Great. We couldn't. Again, we opened the building in 2019. But not in time to schedule classes there. So spring 2020 is going to be our year, and the universe said nope. Yep. So that's even getting into the high school classrooms to talk about the academies. It's taken a lot longer than we thought they would. Nursing, with the hospitals in Katy, that makes perfect sense. Right. And I think that one is where it needs to be. But even that, we're seeing a little bit of slowdown in students wanting to become nurses now. They saw what they had to do during the pandemic, and a lot of people are, sometimes with nursing, we see it's in that student's DNA. I can't train you to be a caregiver. Mm-hmm. It's either who you are or it's who you're not. So I think there's a healthy amount of people that want to do that. So we've got these two underway, but what's next, right? And so we're kind of getting this area of, we could offer all these different programs, cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, supply chain. We have those in Sugar Land. So how do we not duplicate? Are we too close? Mm-hmm. We know that that's what our business community needs. Young people and their parents don't know what those careers are. So you say, you should really look at supply chain. Can my kid get a job in that? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, they can. But it's trying to, again, it's not a traditional career that folks really know. So they're, I don't know of an 17 or 18-year-old that said, I'm going to be a supply chain manager. Yeah. Maybe after the pandemic they understand supply chains now, but
probably not at 18.
Yeah, not at 18.
And it's how do you navigate those conversations with your K through 12 partners to start educating them, right?
Yeah, and what's the right age? So I tell you what's been really, really helpful is having superintendents on our advisory boards and letting them kind of dictate. Some of the conversation I've had is, when do we need to start having these conversations with our students? And I'm thinking, really, I was thinking, we're going to be really progressive. Maybe, I don't know, 7th, 8th grade. They come back, nope, 5th grade. Wow. So again, having conversation with 5th graders, this is what a university looks like, and you look like you belong here. 7th grade, here are career paths. That would be the supply chain conversation. 9th grade, they come back and say, this is the application process. And your grades do matter in high school, and your writing for an essay does matter. And then have them back in 11th grade, and here's a FAFSA workshop, and how to navigate through them. So that way it's almost 4 to 5 touches by the time they come through.
Which is unique, because we were talking earlier, even my own experience 15 years ago when I graduated, college was there. The significance of preparing myself and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't realize that until, college is a thing and I got to start applying until my senior year of high school. You guys are so integrated into our communities now that the awareness is there, or at least trying to ramp up that awareness. Right. And like my kids, I know are going to have every opportunity, whether it be in Katy or hopefully no further than A&M.
It doesn't work
but
that way.
yeah, I know, right? But there's opportunities that you and your partners can provide.
Oh, absolutely. You know, even in K through 12, though, they're talking to junior high students about career paths, and I think again, it's a communication piece where I think families have a little confusion of, you know, my kid is 13 years old and they've got to decide a career path. No, it's not really a career path. It goes back to scouting. It's almost the merit badge model. Then we're going to give you a little bit of information about this to see if if you like it or not. And if you like it,
then
you
maybe
can pursue
you
that a
could do
little bit
something,
more.
yeah.
But you know, let's choose something, because if we leave it up in the air, you're choosing nothing. And sometimes I refer to students as like it's like shopping for a car or a sofa. You know what you don't want first. You're like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, so like, all right, so a kid tries this, you know, an intro class, maybe in 9th grade, on, you know, STEM related. You know, that's not really my thing. Okay, well, let's look at something else. It's okay. Again, it goes back to it's not a mistake, but it's okay to make changes and course correct. So
At a young age.
yeah.
I photograph a bunch of different preschools, and it's funny because 2 weeks ago we went into one of them and they had all these collegiate banners out, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And she was like, yeah, we bring them in and we like to have, you know, people from each of the schools come in. I'm like, really, at such a young age? And she was like, well, yeah. And she said the challenge that she has is there's so many schools that she reached out to that wouldn't even respond to her because they were so young. But you know, the T-shirts they had were from U of H.
Yeah, that's good. It was probably the early childhood program.
Yeah.
So that makes sense
Yeah.
to me. But, you know, it's interesting. Culturally, we're seeing this pushback of you don't need a college degree. And I don't think that colleges, and again, that they pay my paychecks, so let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
I don't think a university or a college degree necessarily needs to be for everybody. Something we grew up hearing is let your conscience be your guide, but make sure your conscience is informed. Right? So what is the earning capacity? Like, yes, you will have debt, but your earning capacity over your lifetime is significantly more if you have the degree, right? So I see a lot of, you know, again, I see a lot of folks going this trade, the trade school routes, which is great. The real opportunity for those people, though, is you have a trade and you continue to grow. So like you get a certificate in HVAC or welding. That's great. You learn the trade, but then you need to start owning your own business and becoming a small business owner. That's the pathway. So if the university can either offer a degree for those folks or just some continuing education to get them what they need, that's the piece that I think is getting lost a little bit.
Yeah, because it feels like the communication out there is one or the other.
One or the other, and it's and.
Yeah.
You know, can we create lifelong learners? You know, what I also see is, I think, and again with the trade. You know, we've got a great partnership with our friends at Texas State Technical College, also with HCC, with Wharton County Junior College, with Lone Star. These are really strong, great programs. What I do see is the students that get these certificates go and they work and they get a boss, and they're like, the only difference between me and that guy or that lady is that piece of paper on the wall, and I'm a lot smarter than them. And they are. You know, so like, all right, well, if you want to get that job route, let's help you get that piece of paper on the wall. You know, yeah.
So one question is, what would you say to somebody that's wanting to start an education? Like, what would be your one piece of advice to somebody that's new, that's wanting to be in education?
To go to have this career path, or to go to college. What's
to the career path?
The career path.
Yes. In education. It can be like K through 12 or college level.
I'm more familiar with the college level. So if they're going to do a PhD, I highly recommend they do the PhD in a field outside of education. So whether that's science or political science or history or whatever, do your research, get your degree in that area of focus. That way that'll drive your research. Network like crazy outside of your university, and then when you're starting your research, you have a research network. So you're doing research. So I did research with anybody and everybody I could. So I was doing research with folks at A&M, Ohio State, Purdue, Arkansas, and there were just different projects, and you would because you have to publish, you have to do research, you have to publish. If you're doing this right, you have 5 or 6 different projects at one time, and they may take the lead author on one paper, you take the lead author on the next one, but you're producing at 5 to 6 times higher than most of your colleagues are, because we're required to have 2 publications a year. If you do it one project at a time, you might be able to get 2 publications a year. If you've got 5 or 6 going at one time and other people are publishing, you're going to do that much more efficiently. So,
okay.
It was a really nerdy answer, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, I mean,
it's good though. I mean, you think about it, and just education alone is so vast, and there's so many different opportunities and potential for career. Nobody knows what to. I mean, coming from you, somebody who's been in the industry so long and established and has leadership opportunities, or has been in leadership within those, I mean, it's nice to hear. Nice to hear what's out there. We've got a few minutes left, but just following up on kind of, what makes Jay tick. Is it? It's
more like Jay has a tick.
After all these years,
you're doing pretty good. You're not ticking right now.
But where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? Not within education.
Personally,
Jay, I don't know. It's interesting.
So your kids are how old now?
Yeah, so 26, 23, 21, and 18.
Okay.
Goodness.
So there are rumors, innuendos, suggestions, hints of us being empty nesters. I will believe it when I see
happens.
it. Yeah.
So do you only have one at home right now?
I have 2 at home right now. So my oldest is finishing up her PTA certificate next Saturday. So this is a big year for the Neal house. So Michaela finishes her PTA certificate. Jackson gets his undergrad from the University of Wisconsin, and Selah graduates from high school. Wow. So Michaela will get a good job. So you have physical therapists looking for PTAs, let me know, because I got some really good.
Yeah.
So Michaela graduates. Jackson graduates. Jackson we'll see. He's got his summer. His lease is up at the end of the summer. So we'll see where he lands. John Riley graduates from A&M next year, and then Selah's going to be going to OU. So we'll have
they're going to be
2 out and 2 in, and then soon to be 3 out. I think John Riley's
maybe
plan,
1 back in.
Yeah, well, I think John Riley, he's really thinking about going to nursing school, which we support, but he may come home for that. So that's going to be the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah. Maybe we'll stay in Fort Bend, but we'll maybe move because I need more area to garden. I mean, this is that's a conversation that's been had.
That 10 by 30
is so awesome.
Yeah. So we have a pool. I'll never own a pool again. Yeah. But if I didn't have a pool,
you could
have. Oh, I could I could be
just
farmer's market.
Drain the water and put soil down.
I thought about that. No, what I really thought about, I had an aquaponic lab.
Yeah.
At main campus, so I had 200 tilapia growing tomatoes and spinach and all that. It was a bed. I had some really good friends that were faculty at HCC. They actually have a hydroponic farm in Pattison now.
Nice.
So I did think about that. She's like, you cannot. The Homeowners Association will not let you do that. So
does she keep saying like, Jay, where are you going with this? Like,
no,
you've
she
taken
just
the
leaves
whole
me
yard.
alone. No, she leaves me alone. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thanks for coming and being a part of the podcast
this has been a lot of fun.
We get to know Jay a little bit better.
Get to know Jay a little bit.
You get to know Jay a lot.
We appreciate you. Any last words?
No, thank you for having me. This has been great, and I hope this thing takes off.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.